Hello there. Today we're going to be discussing the tragedy of Count Dooku. So Count Dooku is one of Star Wars' many well developed and interesting characters, being one of the main antagonists in both episodes 2 and 3, and also being one of the main antagonists throughout the Clone Wars TV show. So like all the prequel villains, Dooku is foreshadowing an aspect of Vader, with Dooku showing the fallen Jedi. So even though the films and TV shows resulted in Dooku being a very memorable character, the expanded universe and Legends gave this character even more depth. So in this video, we will be exploring Count Dooku, giving an overview of his life, looking at whether his life could be described as a tragedy, and then at the end we'll just look briefly at whether he deserved his fate, or whether he was just another victim in Palpatine's grand plan. So we first meet Count Dooku in Attack of the Clones, and he's portrayed as a very eloquent, very sophisticated man leading the Confederacy of Independent Systems. So now we're going to go his background. So Dooku was born on the planet Sereno in the year 102 BBY, and he was born into an aristocratic family, being an heir to vast wealth and also the title of Count, hence the name Count Dooku. So being a Force-sensitive child, Dooku was taken in by the Jedi Order as a youngling and was taught the ways of the Force. So Dooku was a gifted youngling, showing great skill with the Force and the lightsaber, beating younglings both older than himself and younger than himself in tournaments. So from a very early age, Dooku had an interest in diplomacy and also politics, and he studied diplomacy and had special tutorials in the Senate procedures. So these interests would later benefit as he emerged a political figurehead of the CIS. So Dooku became a formidable Jedi Knight and also a formidable Jedi Master, being one of the best lightsaber duelists of all time, even being able to equal Master Yoda and Master Windu when Dooku was in his prime. So his lightsaber skills were so great that holocron recordings of his techniques became mandatory viewings for 2 entire generations of young Jedi. So Dooku's lightsaber expertise was somewhat unusual, for he mastered Form 2 of lightsaber combat, Makashi, which most Jedi did not do at this time. He was so skilled with the blade, he, as an older man, could duel multiple opponents with ease at once, despite Makashi not actually being suited for that style of combat. So along with being proficient with a lightsaber, Count Dooku boasted a vast array of Force powers, and including but not an extensive list of Force Choke and Lightning when he was a Sith Lord, Force Push, and Force Redirection. So along with all these abilities, Dooku was also a great tactician with a high intellect, being one of the smartest Jedi. So along with all these abilities, he was also quite courageous, not being afraid to disagree with the Jedi Council on an entire range of topics, so the most notable one being the theory of the living force, as opposed to the consensus that it was a unified force. And he then taught his views to his apprentice Qui-Gon Jinn, who then became the first Jedi to become one with the living force. So one of Dooku's greatest flaws was his arrogance, believing himself to be superior to everyone due to his skills and his lineage, which led him to thirst for power, paving way for his tragic demise. So Dooku suffered a series of hard events during his life, so we could potentially describe his life a tragedy, which can be simply defined as an event causing great suffering or events leading to an unhappy ending. We will look at a series of tragic events from Dooku's life, all leading to the climax, his execution, ordered by his master. The first instance of a tragic event happened when Dooku had just been chosen as a Padawan learner. So Dooku's friend, Lorian Nod, was jealous of Dooku, so stole a dark holocron, and this was done to increase his chances of being picked as a Padawan. So Dooku tried to talk his friend into returning the holocron, but then the pair were both discovered, and Nod blamed Dooku on the theft. So sometime later, the pair got into a fight, and then the truth was made known that Nod was the thief, but this had long-lasting consequences on Dooku, as he became very wary of friendship and even paranoid about being betrayed, or that didn't really work out for him. So now we're going to fast forward multiple years. So the next event occurred in 44 BBY on the planet Galadran. So the Mandalorian group Death Watch set a trap for another Mandalorian group, True Mandalorians, and this group was led by Jango Fett. So this trap basically involved telling the Jedi that these Mandalorians were murdering political activists. So the Jedi Order sent Count Dooku and gave him command over a Jedi task force. So Dooku, being the peaceful person, ordered Django and the Mandalorians to surrender. What happened next was a ferocious battle with brutal high casualties. On the Mandalorian side, all lie dead except Django Fett, and of the Jedi, 20 were sent, 9 returned, and Django managed to slay 5 with his hand alone. So after seeing the Jedi in his command die, Dooku's faith in the Council wavered, with him saying it was a misguided mission from the start, and not the first of the Council's poor decisions. So now the real villain of Star Wars shows up. Palpatine. Palpatine senses Dooku's disenchantment with the Jedi, and watches him closely as Dooku was a valuable asset with his skills. So now we fast forward to the year 32 BBY. The Sith are revealed to still be at large as Dooku suffers the loss of his former apprentice and friend Qui-Gon Jinn, and Dooku blames the Jedi just as much as the Sith for his personal loss. So shortly after this happened, Dooku decided to leave the Jedi Order, being only one of 20 Jedi who had left the Order. So 10 years later, in 22 BBY, the Clone Wars begins, and Dooku pops up again and is enforcing Palpatine's grand vision. So although Dooku has now turned to the dark side and is now in full bad guy mode, he still suffers through more tragic events. So one instance is after he betrays his apprentice Asajj Ventress, the Night Sisters hatch a plan for revenge. So Ventress and 2 other Night Sisters drug Dooku in an attempt to kill him. So Dooku survives this attempt and takes a new apprentice in Savage Opress, accidentally playing right into the Night Sisters' hand, only to be betrayed again. So the Night Sisters aren't done with tormenting Dooku, as when General Grievous battles the Night Sisters on Dathomir, Mother Talzin begins to slowly kill him with his magic. So Dooku goes through suffering for the Separatists, suffering for the Jedi. But in the final tragic event in Dooku's life comes at the very end. He engages Anakin Skywalker and Obi-Wan Kenobi thinking the plan was to lure Skywalker to the dark side, then he'll get arrested and he will then defect to the Republic stating he wasn't aware of all the atrocities General Grievous was doing. After the war was over, he assumed he would simply re-emerge and be part of the Sith Empire. However, this was not the plan. Anakin bests Dooku and disarms him, literally removing his arms. So far, so good apart from the little disarming hiccup. Now, from Dooku's perspective, Palpatine will step in and save him. So this obviously does not happen. Palpatine's pawn, Count Dooku, has served his purpose, so can now be disposed. Dooku loses his head, just after realising he has been used and betrayed once more. So now we're going to our final section. Did he deserve it? So Dooku was used by Palpatine for over 10 years and was then discarded because Palpatine gained a much more valuable apprentice. So no one can deny he was not a victim of manipulation and betrayal, but the actual final question is, did he have it coming? So one thing is definitely worth looking at. Although he was manipulated, he was still in complete control of his actions, which does make him responsible overall for what happened to him. So Dooku willingly participated in torture, in murder, and even genocide, ordering General Grievous to eliminate all the Night Sisters. So in the very first year of the Clone Wars, when it became apparent that the Republic was going to liberate Ryloth, Dooku ordered the bombing of the civilian population, saying that the Republic victory should be a costly one. In the first year as well, he also kidnapped Jabba's child, and even went as far as ordering his apprentice Ventress to kill the child, so he could frame the Jedi for the simple purposes of bringing the Hutts into the war. So his crimes continue. In Attack of the Clones, he hires Jango Fett to kill Padme, purely to satisfy Newt Gunray's thirst for vengeance. And his political assassinations don't stop there. So later on in the Clone Wars, he orders the death of his own senator, Mina Bonteri, for the simple reason that she wanted the war to end, something he had been saying he wanted as well. So possibly the worst deed he did, and he did whilst still a part of the Jedi Order, was this. So Dooku's friend Sifo Dyas ordered a clone army from the Republic, and when Palpatine learned of this, Dooku was tasked with gaining control of the army and betraying and murdering his friend. So not only did Dooku murder his friend Sifo Dyas, but he also stored his body so he could continue to use Sifo Dyas as a cover to make the clone army. However, it is worth noting, not everything he did was evil. So he was a Jedi for 70 years, and in this time he must have done some good. So enough good to offset all the evil he did in his later years? Probably not, but he still did some good. So another reason he may not have deserved his tragic end was he may not have been evil for the sake of evil. So one of the reasons he joined the Sith was to reforge a broken galaxy. A galaxy that was corrupt and there was suffering, so he joined the Sith to help reforge it. So then the final reason why Dooku may not have deserved his tragic life was simply the amount of suffering he went through as Palpatine's pawn, not including the previously mentioned attack with the Night Sisters. So on at least one occasion, Palpatine reaches out to the Force to choke him simply because he made some mistakes. So this makes Dooku fearful of his master. Now this part isn't really explored in any of the films or TV, but it may also be worth exploring. Dooku may have felt trapped to endure this torment, as the Yoda Dark Rendezvous book has him say, "I have gone too far down the dark path ever to return." So this does in a way tie into Vader, who also feels it's too late for him to repent and be forgiven, but he felt so trapped by this dark path he was on, he didn't feel he could ever return to the light side, meaning he was stuck with his evil deeds. So therefore Dooku was just another complex character. Whilst he was a Jedi, he was being admired by his peers, with DeCosta Nu saying he was one of the most brilliant Jedi I've ever had the privilege of knowing. And when he turned to the Sith, he was seen as little more than a servant by Palpatine, who was only really interested in seducing Anakin to the dark side, and used Dooku to achieve this. So Dooku's reward after all this was to be betrayed one final time. So after betraying his friend and his apprentice, and being betrayed by his friend and his master, he finally saw his master's true plan, and saw he was never even a part of it. So did Dooku suffer a tragic life? Yes. Did he deserve it? I'll leave that up for you to decide. Thanks for watching. I'll speak to you again very soon.